Hello, puppies and kittens. I have a guest today in the Netherlands who wanted to tell his story. This is Francis Capelli,
Yeah.
if I said that correct. All right, so go ahead and fill us in here. What is your background?
All right. I was born in 1968 in the eastern part of the Netherlands, the same city where I live now. And um, my mother was a famous songwriter here in the Netherlands, and she wrote a lot of songs, composed a lot of songs, and she started working for a guy. His Dutch name is Gert Timmerman, but if you translate that, it would sound like Gert Carpenter. And that was a real famous guy, captain of the music industry, basically. And so my mother started to write and work for him during the early 60s. So when I was born, my mother was already doing that job. And, well, she had a great job. We had a nice house, everything. The money was great. And so we basically had a pretty good life. Now, in 1974, something crazy happened. This guy that my mother worked for, and you have to picture this guy, he sang songs like Elvis. Sometimes it was a little bit rock and roll, and then he had all kinds of styles. And in 1974, uh, he turned to Christ, and he said, I believe that there is a God, but I want to have a sign first. That's how he told the story to us. And he wanted a sign directly from God, and that sign he asked for, basically he asked for thunder at clear skies, a thunder kind of thing, and lightning thing, something that made the presence of God basically provable. All right. So this guy sits there. That's how he told the story to the rest of the Netherlands. Also, he told this in many newspapers and to in all kinds of TV shows. So he said, suddenly, all of a sudden, there was this huge explosion, and the windows of my apartment were just shaking. And then I knew God was real, and I threw myself on the ground, prayed to Him, asked Him to forgive all my sins, my former sins, and accepted Jesus Christ into my life and God the Father into my life. Well, this was not our problem, but it became our problem because this man took it into the extreme from the very first day. So he called up my mother and he said, we have a bunch of contracts, and but I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to sing normal songs anymore. I want you to write gospel songs. I want you to write about Jesus Christ, about the beautiful message, this and that. My mother was not familiar with the Bible and not even familiar with Christianity. So there was a lot of discussion about it, but he backed my mother into a corner, because if my mother wouldn't do it, all the money would basically vaporize. So my mother bought a Bible, started to read parts of it, started to write songs about it, and whether or not she believed it herself, I don't know. Not during that time, I guess. She was just writing those songs. And to make a long story short, this guy, after a couple of years, thought that he became a prophet. He was a prophet. He changed the entire villa that he lived in into more or less a Israeli kind of thing. There were the stars of David all over the place, flags from Israel all over the place, and all the old stuff that he had. So this magnificent studio and everything, he tore it down. That was his old life. He had a new life now. He tore it down. He burned all the pictures, including the pictures of his own family pictures. All of that, the old life had passed and a new life had begun. Now, I was growing up there because we were there on a daily basis. We worked together with this guy, and we were there on a daily basis. And he had two daughters and a son. The two daughters, Sheila and Sandra, and then he had a son with the same name as this guy himself. And he started to live the Old Testament basically, and
You started to
that
live the
the Old
Old
Testament,
Testament.
the Old
The Old
Testament,
Testament.
basically, yeah, basically the Levitican law kind of thing, or he started to
So he
have sex
sold
with
his
his
daughters into slavery.
no, but he had sex with them lots of times. He raped them, and he basically raped them, had sex with them, did all kinds of things. And this was the environment that I basically grew up in. And we had no chance to talk about this because, you know, this religious extremities, um, they have this way of, getting into your mind. It becomes a virus. You start to believe it. And we were taught, the entire planet, the entire world was just a place that it was basically Satan's house, and everybody in it knew about it or didn't know about it, but well, they were lost anyway. They would burn in hell forever if they didn't choose the right path. And so we were born in that environment, and uh, basically, to be honest with you, I was a inquisitive guy. I had an inquisitive mind, and of course, there were things that I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe them, but there was this part in me that was cowardly enough to not to investigate it any further, not to accept any kind of critique on the Bible or critique on the message. And so I was a part of that family for a long, long, long time. Now, in approximately 2 years ago, I still was in this warped mindset that the world was going to hell. Um, the Antichrist would rise. This would happen, that would happen, the other would happen. But 2 years ago, I encountered modern debate, and you were talking about Exodus. You were talking about the slavery in the Bible, in the Old Testament. I never read the Bible myself. Never, ever had. I just accepted the story as it was imposed on us, and sometimes with force. I cannot go into every detail because there are still two people alive that had to were involved in this, and but there was a lot of mistreatment, a lot of sexual abuse, all kinds of things. So 2 years ago, sitting in front of my computer, I was searching for something completely unrelated, and modern day debate, it was called, popped up, and you were in there uh, talking about slavery. I don't know who the other guy or the other person was. I can't remember that, but I listened to the arguments, and
I'm in the
I
same
could
position. I can't remember who that other person
no.
would have been
I,
either.
I really, I really, but it was 2 years ago, something like that. And I listened to your arguments, and I thought, well, this can't be true. This can't be true. This cannot be in there. I mean, this can't be because we had this mindset that would never allow us to believe in a God like that. So what I did was I checked out an online Bible, and I checked out Exodus 21 and all the other places you referred to back then, and there it was. I read it. I said, well, there it is. So I called. The first thing I did, because I panicked. I panicked. My parents were already dead. They died in this religion, in this belief. many of my friends that were already gone and died were in this belief. So I basically panicked because I thought, well, then if this is the case, then there's no heaven. There is not. There's not. There's no heaven. There's nothing there. So all the persons that and all these years that I believed in this thing, and all the people that I interacted with, so well, one thing is for sure, they're not in heaven. So I panicked, and I called a reverend of a church pretty near, pretty close to my house, and I said, listen, I said, I have this link, and I will send it to you, and I want you to read, and I want you to respond to it. I want you to come to my house and respond to this. What do you think of this? How is this possible? And he says, well, what is it? I said, well, you just go there, listen to it, read it, and tell me what you think. And so the next day, this guy came along. He came to my house, and he said, well, yeah, well, it's the Old Testament. Life was like that these days. I said, no, no, that's not the truth. I said, this is God speaking. God is commanding those people to do these things. What do you think of it? And then he said, well, yeah, well, aren't we all slaves? We are all slaves. You have to work, I have to work, you have to do it. I said, yes, but you cannot go and beat somebody half to death, or own them for the rest of your life. I said, what is this? This is a scam. This can't be true. Well, always departed quite violently, because I just kicked him out of the house, basically because he was not honest. And so I was sitting here listening to that, and first there was a lot of panic, and then it became more I became more relaxed, and I started to understand that this was all a big scam, that this could never be God. So I started to listen to you, to Matt Dillahunty, follow the shows a little bit more. I was sore, still sore from the slavery debate. Believe me, I was, but I started to listen to it, and listen to all those arguments. And the thing that surprises me the most, now, I was in this thing for almost 55 years. Uh, one part of my life I was in there by force, and there's this other part that I could not get rid of it anymore, and it became a reality to me. It was just simply a reality, and that's it. But after this slavery debate and the other debates that I listened, it sort of, my entire world basically imploded. There was nothing left. It was all, it was just ashes, and that's it. But at the other end, I recognized the truth. I recognized it. I said, this cannot be happening. This cannot be true. This book is a book of lies. It's a corrupt book. It's morally, wow. It's criminal. It's strictly criminal, basically. And I couldn't believe it. But I listened to those debates. But I listened to the arguments of the Christians, and these arguments, they keep surprising me, because it's in there. You cannot twist it into something else. And my question to you would be, uh, after being in this religion for so many years, hearing this basically simple argument about slavery, the immorality of slavery, how can it be that something clicked, and I immediately recognized this, to be a scam? And how can it be that I hear so many other people who hear the same things, who read the same things, and are not able to escape this fable? I don't know how that works, and that is why I had this question to you. How can some how can someone who is 55 years in this loop of madness, how can he escape so easily? And why is it that others are in this loop and don't even try? Has this something to do with our psychology, or is it dishonesty, or what do you think?
Well, it's both. I mean, it is a dishonesty that is required by our psychology. Believers are believers because they make believe.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the case. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that there are people who sincerely think that, if they went back in a time machine, they would find a time when the world was flooded, or where they would find Jesus in some sort of condition like they would expect him to be, or they would find Adam and Eve or some such shit. I know there are people that superficially think that way, but when you begin to challenge them, this is when I find that they are actually make believers, because the
Mm-hmm.
way they defend that belief
Mm-hmm.
is different than the way they would defend any other position.
Yeah.
Anything else, they're okay being wrong with. They're okay being wrong about, right? If you can show them that they're wrong, but not on this, because this has become their identity. And there's a big problem with politics too, because people have made their political position their identity, and so it is no
Mm-hmm.
longer questionable. You can show everything in the world that's wrong
Mm-hmm.
with the person that they're promoting or voting for or whatever, and
Yeah.
they'll never accept it. They will double down, whatever. And in many cases, most people, there's a lot of people who just can't get out of that. But I've seen plenty of people that want to defend their belief. They want to believe it so bad that it has to be an authority. It doesn't matter what the facts are. See, you can have, if somebody said, if an authority says it's this way,
Yeah.
all the evidence of the world says it's otherwise, you still go with the
Unbelievable.
authority. And I
Yeah.
remember a preacher who did a movie called My Week in Atheism, and he
Mm-hmm.
had me in his movie. I happened a I happened to see one of his sermons that he had uploaded to the internet,
Mm-hmm.
and in there he described that how irrational he is. That he says he believes, I'm going to believe A, although
Mm-hmm.
thing points to B, I'm going to believe A. And that's just one of the irrational things he said there. But I mean, this is how they're describing their position. They are determined to believe something. And I've had many people tell me, well, not many, but several people have told me that they will continue to believe, even if they know that it's not true, they will continue to believe it anyway.
And why would you do that?
I know people in my own family like that.
That's insane. I'm telling. Yeah. You see, I lost my entire family as well over this, because the bad thing is, or yeah, that's basically the bad part. My mother's works are still out there, so opinion now, my opinion has changed about whether or not there is a God. To me, there is no God. There is no authority. But stating that, they say I basically kicked my mother in the face because of her early works. But that's not, I like her. The songs are, greatly written. So it's not that I'm against her songs, or, but I'm just, this message is just insane. I heard you also about this. I never thought of it this way, but for instance, Jesus Christ, who was God Himself, basically offering Himself to Himself for us to. Well, if you really think about it, how could I believe this for so many years? Because I dearly believed it. I believed it. It was my reality. It was a reality. And but it's gone now, thanks to you and to Matt Dillahunty. Everything's gone now. But yeah, I wonder, how can you be so dishonest, wanting to believe something that is evidently not true? I don't understand that.
I was
Uh,
always confused as to why you would want to be completely convinced of something that might not be true. I mean, just there. What if it might not be true? Why do you want to be completely convinced of it? Why not just consider possibilities, weigh probabilities, weigh and contrast multiple hypotheses at once? You consider, well, if this is true, then we should expect this, and if this other thing is true, then we should expect that.
Yeah.
But that's a rational way to look at things.
Yeah.
We're talking about believers. That's not rational. They have to believe. They have to make themselves believe. And I've had it described to me a number of different ways. One guy put it to me that they would read the most ridiculous parts of the Bible and assure each other, isn't it amazing that really happened? And then he called that eating the word, where you do what you can to defy reason, to believe the most ridiculous thing, which is why, Jesus walks on water, for example. Why that story is there? Because it's one of the most ridiculous things that they could think of, that people can convince themselves if you just believe hard enough.
I don't understand that. I really don't. I really don't understand the mindset of it. If you know that something cannot be proven, or that something is evidently not out there, why do you want to believe it? And this is the crazy thing, because this has divided me in two parts. I will never ever go back to something like that, to whatever religion or whatever so-called spiritual, whatever. I will never go back there. But there was a part of my life I lived it like that, and I can't understand that part, because if I had encountered somebody who had taught me the same thing like you did there on Modern Debate, I most likely back then, in those days, I just would turn around and say something like, "Go away, Satan," something like that. I believe it's so. It's. But you call it irrational, but is it? It could be a mental defect almost, right? It's almost a mental kind of defect. If I look back on how we thought and what we did, it was almost a mental defect.
Well, we're not talking about people who were raised to understand logic. So what I'm talking about here is all religious positions, all religious faith is asserting baseless speculation as if it was a matter of fact. And this is the thing that I find most irritating about religious belief. They want a thing to be true, so they say it's true. They don't know if it's true, but they say it's true. Which, if you don't even know if it's true, why are you saying that it is? Because that's lying, right?
Yeah, it is.
You're pretending to know things you don't know. That's lying. You're claiming facts that are not facts. Well, I know for a fact there's a God. No, you don't know that, and it's not a fact.
You don't know that, no.
Even if there was a God, you still don't know it, and because there's nothing you can show.
No.
There's no way you can check yourself out. Are you confused? Are you misremembering, or whatever? If there's no data, there's no evidence that you can show. Then you literally can't show the truth of your position. In which case, you have no business giving out these details. You don't know fuck all about God. When you can show that you're right about God, then you can talk about God.
Yeah. And why is it? Why are people always asking for the? What has evolution to do with, for instance, God? Because I always hear people asking about evolution and what's the other thing called, biogenesis, I guess. You see, there's also a language barrier, of course, because this is not my native language. I try to come up with the best English I can possibly come up with. Okay. But some of the scientific terms that you use, for instance, when you talk about evolution, you make it. You say there are no kinds, but clades or something like that. Yeah. But why are they always? What has evolution something to do with the origins? No, right? It has nothing to do with the origin of life, right? It's just the basically the diversity of life, right?
Yes, It's not how
All
life
right.
originates, it's how life diversifies. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand why they ask about it then, because it has nothing to do. Nobody can prove
The
or
problem is
disprove
that
God.
remember, we're talking about people who believe in not in evidence, but in authority. And if an authority
Authority.
says it, you can have all the evidence in the world prove it wrong. But remember, I'm going to believe A. Everything points to B. All the evidence points to B, but I'm going to believe A. Right? That's the
Yeah.
irrational position. You're going to believe in a position that is unsupported. You're going to
Yeah.
assert that this thing that is not evidently true nor even possible is the absolute truth. So you've just amped up the lie. You've just told the lie louder. Right? It made it
Right.
more of
Yeah.
a lie.
That's it. Same thing, but louder. Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
which is why
message.
it's so irritating to me when somebody comes to say, at the White House always has a spiritual advisor.
Yeah.
How the
Yeah. It's
fuck
unbelievable.
you would how can you advise anybody when you can't even show that there's a there, that there is even a spirit at all? Get a panel
Yeah.
of people from different religions and let's see which one's right. But you're not going to ever find that any of them are right. You're going to find that all of them together can't confirm that there is even a supernatural at all.
No.
And even though they all believe in the supernatural, they all describe it differently in mutually exclusive, contradictory ways because it's all made
Mhm.
up.
But you also, I remember also a story that you told about this girl that had told you that she could basically find you without
Yeah,
actually being there. And I remember that her findings were absolutely or almost accurate, and that you were some kind of astonished to find out about that. So
yeah.
how do you explain a thing like that, or is there no explanation for it at all?
Well, she might have spoken to my friend, although she insists that she did not, and he insists that she did not. And they weren't close to each other, so I don't think that she did. I think she accurately guessed, but that's pretty phenomenal
Yeah, it
for her
is.
to get all of that right. That's pretty
Yeah,
phenomenal. But
scare the
what
living
gets
daylights
me
out of
though, that she passed that test so brilliantly. And for people who are in the background who don't understand what I'm talking about, back in high school, there was a girl who practiced transcendental meditation, and she was all
me. Yeah.
about astral projection, as I was at that time myself. And
Okay.
she said that she could find me. She didn't need geography. So if I'm not in my house, she'll be able to locate where I am just by thinking about me. She'll track me down.
Yeah.
And so I went to a friend's house and spent the night in his place, and I changed everything in his room. He had the only thing I left was he had a big reel to reel tape player. I left that up
Yeah.
against the wall. His his bed, we took one of the box springs off of it and put so that the other bed has two box springs on it, and we turned it perpendicular to the other one. So it was just two beds facing the same way. Now they're like this.
Yeah.
She got that the beds were at odd angles to each other. She
Right.
got that the beds were one is higher than the other.
Yeah.
And maybe she meant to be describing a bunk bed or something, but the way she described it matched what we were talking about. And then she said something about a mechanical owl,
All right.
something that
Yeah.
looked like an owl. I'm
And
like,
there
have
was
you
a
ever
tape
seen
as
a
well.
reel to reel tape machine?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
got the two reels.
Yeah.
It look like big
Yeah.
eyes, and then the
Like big
reader
eyes.
in the middle.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm convinced she passed my test.
Yeah.
She knew I wasn't at home, that I was at this other person's place. She described all of it, and so I was very impressed with that. But the thing is, decades later, she doesn't believe that even happened.
Yeah. What the hell? What the hell,
Yeah.
man? Yeah. What the? Yeah. You can't do anything with it then. But no, you can't do anything with it. But it's remarkable because yeah, things like that. Sometimes when I see and I listen to a story like that, there's this old habit kicking in. Like, all right, maybe there's something out there. Maybe there's something bigger than you. Maybe there's something. But I kill it immediately because it's not logical. It's No,
Well,
it would not be
let's
like.
think about that for a moment, because there is somebody in the chat right now who, if I saw it correctly, it was just skimming by, but it looked like there was somebody that said that atheism is a belief, and this is one of the most irritating
No,
lies that I
no,
ever
it's not
hear.
belief. I don't believe
You know,
anything.
why would we have to? When you say believe, you mean why would you mean make believe? The way believers use the word believe is make believe. So why would we pretend that there's no God? And believers ignore all the contradictory evidence. They don't need any evidence. They assume what they do without any evidence at all, and then they ignore all the evidence against them. Just take exactly that and do completely the opposite. So we don't reject any evidence. We don't
No,
make the assumption. Our position can and will obligately change as the evidence demands.
of course,
Authority
yeah,
are worthless. As Carl Sagan put it, arguments from authority are worthless. I don't care
it
who
is.
said it. I want to know why. Show me that your authority is right. What evidence does he have to back up that he's right? And I will change my position. I've done it before. Anytime I
Yeah,
turn out to be wrong about anything, and it's best to own that and figure out
yeah,
how to
sure.
correct yourself early on,
Yeah, yeah.
especially when you get older, because I've noticed that to some people, and some people I admire for their earlier work, they reach a point where they do or say something regrettable, and rather than take correction,
Hmm.
they double down.
Yeah,
That is not the way I'm
they
going to
shut
go.
up about it. Yeah,
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 you show me that I'm wrong. I'm going to own it as quickly as I can, and then I won't be wrong anymore. Isn't that great? So I was wrong up to this
sure.
point. You showed me the correction, and now I'm not wrong anymore. I will thank you for that. But
Yeah,
believers have this game where they are trying to believe a thing no matter what the evidence against it. I'm going to believe
no.
A. Everything points to B. I'm going to believe A. So it doesn't matter. Logic, reason, facts, evidence, possibility. Doesn't matter.
But where do they get this thing that atheism is a belief? It has nothing to do with belief. I just don't believe that there's evidence for God. That's it. That's what I believe. I don't see any evidence for God, and
Because there's
this is
not
why.
everybody thinks in terms of evidence. So if you think in terms of evidence, that means that you don't assume a position straight away. You are
No,
aware of multiple possibilities, hypotheses, or whatever, and you're open to whatever is supported. Okay, you
yeah,
may have a preference,
yeah,
and lots of times I will think, well, I hope this is true. This is the one I want to be true. I hope it turns out to be, and then it
yeah.
doesn't.
No,
Damn it. Oh well.
yeah.
Move
Well,
on. But
yeah,
you look for the evidence that would either support it, and also look for the evidence that would disprove it or correct it if there is any.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's my mindset now as well. I mean, yeah. And I don't even believe I cannot even believe that I was that there are two parts of my life where I was completely basically a basket case repeating what I was told, and at the same time having this mind that was always asking me something, asking me things, because it was asking about the flood. It was asking about how do you get all those fucking animals into a boat, into a boat like that. And it was asking me things like, okay, the Chinese, they make their pottery and it's older than the flood maybe, and how come that they didn't drown, that they didn't live like SpongeBob or something? So this flood myth, basically, I asked it myself, but there was this other part of my brain that immediately would kick in and say, well, those are satanic whispers. Satan is now trying to cast doubt. And, I was really thinking like that, basically like a split personality for a long, long, long time.
I have a question for you. I want
Sure,
you to
yeah.
think about it
Yeah.
before you answer. I have seen many people come away from religion,
Hmm.
and they've often spoke about how the adverse effects that their religious belief had on them, how
Hmm.
bigoted they used to be.
Hmm.
with regard to homosexuals or
yeah,
brown people or
yeah,
certain nationalities or certainly anybody of a different faith, whatever.
yeah,
They were always so bigoted and so judgmental about all these things. Yeah, I know you're not supposed to judge. You're not supposed to call any man a fool, but Christians sure do, don't they?
yeah. Hmm.
And
They
then
don't.
a lot of the people that I see, and I'm saying this is the majority so far as I can see it.
Hmm.
People that come away from the faith, they become they're 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 more tolerant.
Hmm.
They become more curious. Several people have told me that they've gone back to school, that they've gone back to
Yeah,
college to catch up on what they missed out on,
yeah, yeah,
and they are more, they vote more liberal. They have more compassion and tolerance for other people. They just, so far as I can see, they become better people when they get rid of this belief.
yeah.
How you've only been out of it? You said you were in for 55 years. You've only been out for 2.
Yeah.
How would you judge who you are now
Now,
versus then?
completely the opposite, I guess. Because I was against gays. I was against all kinds of what they call sexual immorality. I was, yeah, and now that God turned out not to exist, and yeah, it's unbelievable. I have to laugh about it every time I say it, but it is like that. That completely the complete set of beliefs has no underpinning anymore. So now I start to realize how many fucking years I have wasted not going to school, not getting any education because I never went to school. My highest class was the sixth class of what you guys call elementary school, and that's it.
So were you homeschooled at that point, or could you just opt out of further education then?
No, yeah, in the Netherlands, you can basically, when the parents forbid you to go to school, or and there was also the part that my mother for her work moved a lot from one place to another. And so I was basically homeschooled, but that homeschooling was nothing else than the Bible, the religion, uh, and there was a lot of abuse. For instance, I could not have, for instance, privacy because I was growing up and became a man. And so, well, then you start to explore yourself, if you know what I mean. But you couldn't do that either because my mother would remove all the doors in the house and there was no private room anymore. There were just some curtains. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was really like that. And but turning back to your question, yeah, I became much more tolerable, and I'm looking for knowledge now. I explored, for instance, you guys have that show, The Atheist Experience, going on there, and we don't have those things. We in the Netherlands, this is a strange thing. We have, you see, I lost the entire community. I lost my family. I lost almost all of my friends because of this turnaround. And
Yeah.
but there's almost no communion in the Netherlands. There's no atheist experience. There's no, for instance, I was thinking sometimes, well, maybe I should, study the Bible more, talking about it more on the internet, started talking about it on the internet, and even let them call me, something like that, starting something to get something done in the Netherlands. There's a huge difference between what you believe the Netherlands are, or many Americans think about the Netherlands. Well, it's a pretty liberal country. It's, you can smoke pot in front of a police officer, and you can do all those things. Well, we are also a pretty closed country. For instance, I can go out on YouTube and find a zillion of interrogations, but you cannot find one Dutch interrogation when a crime happened. You cannot find things like that. You don't know who the detectives are who solve the case most of the times. It's all basically closed. And atheism became something in this country, and that's what I feel. It's something that you almost cannot afford to be, because most of the people that I speak to, they expect you to believe at least in something. You have to believe, because you're a human being. At least you
In
have
the
to believe in
Netherlands?
something. Yeah, in the Netherlands. Yeah, you see, the Netherlands is there are parts that are pretty open in this country, very open, and but there are also parts completely different. As because I spoke to some other American friends I had, but that was a long time ago, and they had this picture of the Netherlands. Oh well, it's a liberal country. It's all small. It's all this and all that, and it's all happy people on dancing around, and you can do whatever you want.
And a
That's not the way it
million
is.
bicycles.
Yeah, yeah, sure. That's for sure. That we have that. Yeah,
All right, I've got a
but
question
atheists.
where I don't have a
Yeah,
question. One of the viewers has a question for both of us.
yeah,
Are you now ashamed that you once believed in God? And I think you actually already answered this question
yeah,
earlier. Yeah,
yeah. I'm very much ashamed, because I have a daughter as well. I teach my daughter in the same ways, basically, not the harsh way, by the way, because I left my daughter. She could become whatever she wanted, but I was always there to talk about Jesus and about this and about that. And suddenly, when I had this flip around, this turn around, and this realization that, if slavery is in the Bible, and to me this became the most important part, this slavery thing. It stuck with me like glue, and I couldn't get rid of it. This slavery thing, that you can own another person, and you can beat them, and you can poke their eyes out even, and you can do this and that. And so when I turned around, my daughter was pretty angry, because I had taught her all these things that I now was stepping out of. And I told her, I'm very sorry, I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. And you shouldn't believe it either, because but well, she is still in this phase of, well, the Christian version of Jesus is still very important to her. So I'm not going to push her too much. I don't know what to do with it, because I don't know what to do with that. But yeah, I'm very ashamed when I look back on my life and the things that I have done and said in name of this religion. And there's one particular example, if I can do that. Um,
sure.
um, we had this church thing that we went into the streets to how do you call it, to talk to, to non-believers, basically.
Street preaching?
Yeah, kind of street preaching, kind of thing going on. And there was this part. I was passing McDonald's, and I was looking inside, and there was this little girl. I guess maybe 6, 7 years old, with this birthday hat on, and she was sitting there with a big smile, and with a Happy Meal, and her parents were there, and I was looking at her. The guy that I was with said to me, isn't it a shame that those people will burn in hell forever? And as I was passing that McDonald's, I remembered that face. I remembered the face of that child that was so happy with her Happy Meal. And I already thought, what kind of a God would throw a family like that, or a girl like that, into a fire pit to burn forever and ever and ever?
It
So
would
there
have to
were
be a
doubts.
pretty evil God,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's evil. It's purely, it's insane. Even it's something that if a human being does that, you want you want to hang him, right? But this is, yeah. It all becomes normal somehow, and you start to believe in it. And now I'm ashamed of it. Yeah, I am.
Somebody in the chat is asking about, who is the guy that Aaron invites. I don't know who. You're going to have to be more specific. And there was somebody in the chat earlier who has bailed, and I never get a chance. When I finally see that she's in there, or I'm guessing it's a she. When I finally see that this person is in there, and I want to extend an invitation, they bail. Somebody
Okay.
using the name Christian Bird, right?
Okay.
They're trying to bring me the good news. But what the good news is, something they don't know to be true that they just say is true,
Mhm.
and I have to believe that, or else this God is going to punish me, not for
Mhm.
anything I did, but for what I did or didn't believe.
Yeah. It's
That's
unbelievable.
the
Yeah.
eternal punishment for
Yeah.
a lifetime that by comparison to infinity is a blink, right?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
That's all I
Of
am.
course.
I'm a photon, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
based on that one instant, you're going to be either lavishly pleasured for all of eternity, or
Wow.
viciously, vindictively, savagely, brutally
Yeah.
tortured. For
It's
what?
unbelievable.
Over whether you believed the lies of the preachers.
Yeah. This is unbelievable. Yeah. I
So I
can
would love
see
for
this
a
clearly
Christian
now.
Bird
Yeah.
and anybody else that might be in the chat. If you're a Christian, reach out to me. Show me the truth of what you're saying, because
Right.
there ain't any to your belief. Otherwise,
No.
there just isn't.
No. 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 There is not. I came to the same. I came to the same conclusion. Believe me. And there is no truth in this story whatsoever. And there's this other part. I don't know who said it, but I think it was Matt Dillahunty or somebody else. He said even when God would exist, the Bible would still be monumentally wrong, and the
That
Quran
was
would
me.
still be wrong. It was you, right?
That was
Yeah,
me.
yeah. You fucked my entire world up, and here we are talking to each other. Yeah, but that's yeah. I'm really thankful that it happened. I'm really grateful, and I think this thing that you guys are doing over there, and also you, Alan, the things that you do, they are very important because they change lives, even after 55 years. If you're an honest person and you listen to the facts and you read this stuff, you understand immediately that it has nothing to do with what God whatsoever. It has everything to do with evil, barbaric kind of people that didn't know how to run things, I guess, how to connect to other people, how to create a normal society. And that's how I look at it now. Yeah. So I thank you for that. Uh, I want to thank you for that because this is a very important uh, thing. It was one of the most important things in my life. Losing all these false narratives and all these false perspectives. And of course, it was hard because had already lost my parents and I had already lost my friends, and then it becomes hard when you realize, hey, they are not in heaven whatsoever. But at the other end, I'm so happy that I stumbled over this modern day debate with this guy there, this guy over there, this arm. Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
very much for that.
yeah.
I'm gonna let you make a closing statement, however you would like to. I'm supposed to do I'm doing a political thing tonight. I'm gonna go to one of those what are they? I forget where the politicians come and meet the public in a private room. I'm
All right, yeah,
supposed to Yeah, I'm
yeah.
supposed to be in there for that. And
Oh, okay. You have to be in that room. Yeah,
yeah, town hall, something like that. I think
yeah.
that's what they
City
call it.
hall, yeah, town hall thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm supposed to
yeah.
meet for that, and I've got a couple of other things I've got to do. But I want to thank you for sharing your story, your perspective.
Sure
The
thing.
the viewing audience seem to have responded to it overwhelmingly positively,
Okay, thank
so,
you. Yeah,
that from what I could see. All
yeah.
right, and there are some people in the chat that are thanking you for being here too. So
All
let me,
right.
yeah,
Well, Aaron, then I wish you all the best, and I wish the people that are listening and watching this all the best. And who knows? Maybe we talk again, or we see each other again. Sometimes we somewhere. It's a small world after all, right?
yeah. Nobody's coming to this country anymore. So maybe I can
Nobody.
get back to the Netherlands.
Yeah. Well, if you're there, give me a call.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Thank you
Bye
for
bye.
everything. Bye bye.